So I chose to do my case study on Forrest Gump. So Forrest Gump is a character from the movie Forrest Gump, and he was a very simple man growing up in Alabama. So a little bit about his story. He lived with his single mother, who he loved dearly, and he had many adventures, which included playing college football for the University of Alabama, participating in the military, and fighting in the Vietnam War. He was nationally acclaimed in ping pong, and he started a shrimping business that made him a multimillionaire. He also loved running. So going into his personality profile, we're going to start with openness to experience. So Forrest Gump scored high in that category because of a lot of the adventures that I mentioned on the previous slide. One particular being that he used all of the money from a ping pong endorsement to start a shrimping business without having any shrimping knowledge or previous background in business. Second, conscientiousness. He scored moderately in this section because he is on the lower side for intellect. However, he shows excellence in dutifulness, and that is shown especially when he was in the military because he did everything with haste and accuracy. So for extroversion, he also scored high. This has to do with his willingness to talk to anybody and everybody about anything and everything. Moving on to agreeableness, he scored high on this also. He very much was a good friend, and he demonstrated that in a lot of instances, but in particular, whenever he was trying to save his friend Bubba from enemy fire while they were in Vietnam. Going on to neuroticism, he scored moderate here, only because of the few episodes of anger that he did show in trying to defend his beloved friend Jenny from men that he saw as dangers to her. So going into the diagnosis, I diagnosed him with intellectual development disorder as well as autism spectrum disorder. I diagnosed him with both of these because of the DSM definition of their comorbidity. So the high functioning of his fine motor skills was enough was significantly more than the deficiencies in his social skills, as displayed by his assembling and disassembling of firearms, as well as his efficiency in ping pong. So the category of disorders that these fall into is neurodevelopmental disorders. Here's the criteria for both of the disorders, with the left being the intellectual development disorder and the right being autism. And I mention these just because I'm going to reference them in this next slide. So going into the first symptom, talking about the time in which the symptoms start showing up was in the developmental period, and that is very true and held throughout the movie, and the issues that he had with speech at the very beginning of the movie. Also, with criterion B, we're talking about limited sociocultural functioning. So he is very naive and innocent. He takes a lot of everything that a person says is very literal. He also is unaware of a lot of the historical events that he participates in throughout the movie. A symptom that he does not exhibit is that of the social domain of criterion B, which has to do with his friendship abilities. He has maintained lasting friendships with everyone he decided to befriend, which include Jenny, Bubba, and Lieutenant Dan. Moving on to a treatment plan for him, I approached it with a humanistic therapy orientation, starting with, also I wanted to mention that I created this treatment plan with the idea that we could start treatment before at a time in Forrest's life before the movie ended. So basically from birth until where the movie did end. So I started him off with speech therapy so that he could increase his social skills earlier. Moved him into special education once he did start school with a 504 plan so that he could have individualized treatment, and then continued with occupational therapy so that he could kind of resolve some of the social challenges that are present in his life. So my long-term goal for him was for him to reach his intellectual potential school-wise, while also managing the social challenges that he has, which comes with eliminating environmental inhibitors. I would say that this is the appropriate treatment because there's not a cure and because there are no pharmaceutical treatments for his symptoms. So going on to the movie portrayal. So I would say that in general, this movie was outwardly unrealistic for someone with the disorders that Forrest has, just because he exhibited a lot of success that normal people with intellectual development disorder and autism spectrum disorder probably couldn't achieve just because of their inhibitions. However, there is a probability that the life that we see him living is what someone with intellectual development disorder sees their life as being. So it could be a worldview that's very much from Forrest's perspective. So the way that the movie portrays the disease kind of is interesting because it kind of degrades the necessity of treatment by talking about the success that Forrest did have. So one of the themes through the book is about floating through life versus having a destiny. And the feather that's a part of the movie at the very beginning and the very end kind of demonstrate this theme. But again, the movie kind of creates a mood for the viewers of pity for people who do suffer from psychological disorders, just because they create, they kind of appeal to our emotions and feeling sorry for Forrest. So these are just the websites that I used in making my presentation, and I thank you for listening.